She trembled barefoot in the bitter frost. Just 19, trafficked like contraband nobody wanted to claim. He was a lone father, fractured in silent ways, with nothing remaining but a decent soul and $147 in his pocket. When their shattered worlds collided in that icy clearing, neither could have imagined they were each other's final hope and greatest blessing. Before we embark on this remarkable odyssey of connection, endurance, and restoration, if narratives like this resonate with your spirit, remember to follow our channel. Your simple gesture of support helps these compelling stories reach others desperately needing their message. Now let me reveal what truly unfolded. The towering evergreens sighed in the merciless gust, their elongated shadows dancing across the frozen dirt path like phantoms of remorse. Daniel Morgan tightened his grip on the steering wheel of his battered pickup as the winding trail led him deeper into the Wyoming wilderness. He hadn't intended to venture down this road. He hadn't even planned to pause in this region. But the crudely painted sign, "Cash Auction, 3 p.m. only," tugged at something primal within him he couldn't explain. Something ancient, something visceral. He possessed exactly $147, nothing more. Barely enough for fuel to return home, perhaps some groceries for his daughter Emma, and the asthma medication refill she'd need within days. Yet here he was, squandering precious resources on an inexplicable detour into nothingness. The clearing materialized without warning, several trucks haphazardly surrounding a makeshift bonfire. Men with unkempt faces and vacant stares gathered near a crude wooden platform, hastily assembled from splintered shipping pallets. No one smiled. The atmosphere reeked of gasoline, cheap liquor, and something more sinister Daniel refused to name. A tall figure in a weathered overcoat stood on the platform, his voice rough as gravel. 19, healthy condition, works hard, minimal appetite. The young woman was shoved forward like cattle. Daniel's breath caught. She stood barefoot in the snow. Her ebony hair hung in tangled waves past her shoulders, her jeans torn at the knees. But it wasn't her appearance that seized him. It was her eyes, empty, guarded, as if she'd already accepted that rescue was impossible and that hope belonged to others. "This ain't charity," the auctioneer barked as murmurs rippled through the crowd. "You want her? You pay or leave." Someone snorted derisively. "Looks damaged already. No man here foolish enough to waste money." The girl flinched at the cruel words but remained tearless. Daniel couldn't tear his gaze away. He thought of Emma. He remembered how fragile she'd appeared, curled on their sofa last winter, lips tinged blue, struggling for breath before the ambulance arrived. He remembered the anguish of absolute helplessness. "I'll take her," he said. His own declaration startled him. Laughter cascaded through the assembly. The auctioneer narrowed his eyes. "You serious, old-timer?" Daniel stepped forward, extracting his wallet from his coat. "I have 147. "Cash?" the man spat contemptuously. "You're short." Daniel maintained his silence, simply extending the bills. After a prolonged moment, the man shrugged. "Fine, she's yours, no returns." The girl raised her eyes slowly. Her lips parted slightly, forming an unspoken question too dangerous to voice. Daniel offered no hand. He merely nodded toward his truck. She followed. The drive back remained silent. Daniel said nothing, and the girl asked nothing. She huddled in the passenger seat, arms wrapped tightly around herself, fingers blue-tinged from cold. Daniel increased the heater. She showed no reaction. He glanced sideways. "Name?" Her voice was raspy, brittle. "Ava. I'm Daniel. My daughter's name is Emma. She's 7. Ava remained silent. Daniel pulled into the driveway of his modest cabin nestled among the pines. Smoke curled from the chimney. The porch light glowed softly in the gathering dusk. Inside, warmth enveloped them like an embrace. A few framed photographs adorned the walls. Emma's kindergarten handprint preserved in paint. A wedding portrait yellowed with time. "I'll fetch you a blanket," Daniel said, disappearing down the hallway. Ava stood motionless in the entryway. Her eyes surveyed the room as if it might evaporate should she blink too long. He returned carrying a worn quilt. She accepted it but didn't wrap herself in it. Instead, she stared at him. "Why?" she whispered. Daniel didn't pretend to misunderstand. "Because nobody else would," he replied, "and because I couldn't walk away." He sought no gratitude, merely gestured toward the sofa. "You can sleep there tonight." Ava lowered herself onto the cushions cautiously, the blanket still folded across her lap. Daniel switched off the hallway light, leaving only the gentle radiance of a lamp near the fireplace. Before turning away, he heard her voice again, barely audible. "Nobody's ever done anything like this. Not for me." Daniel paused. "Then rest now, Ava. You're protected here." He walked away, but neither found much sleep that night. Dawn broke over the pine-covered ridge, bathing the cabin roof in delicate light that barely penetrated the frost clinging to the window panes. Inside, the living room remained suspended in hushed stillness, broken only by the gentle ticking of an aged wall clock and the soft rumble of the heating system. Ava sat upright on the sofa, the faded quilt still neatly folded on her lap. She hadn't truly slept. Her body had rested, but her mind remained vigilant, coiled tight. She didn't know how to release it. Safety had been a foreign concept for years. Even now, in this warm sanctuary that smelled faintly of wood smoke and cinnamon, part of her still anticipated shouting, violence, or worse. The house seemed unnervingly peaceful. She rose cautiously, her feet touching the wooden floor with uncertainty. She possessed no belongings to unpack, no toothbrush, no change of clothes, just the garments she'd worn in the snow and the persistent ache in her ribs that had never fully subsided. From the narrow hallway came soft footsteps. Daniel appeared, hair disheveled, flannel shirt unbuttoned over a white undershirt. He paused upon seeing her. "You didn't sleep," he observed gently. Ava shook her head. He nodded once, not pressing further. "Coffee?" She hesitated before offering a slight nod. In the kitchen, Daniel moved with practiced quietness. He poured water into a dented kettle, measured grounds into an old filter. The silence between them wasn't uncomfortable, merely uncertain. "I've got oatmeal too," he offered. "You needn't bother," she replied. "I realize that," he said, pouring coffee regardless. Ava wrapped the quilt around her shoulders and entered the kitchen, examining the worn table with its chipped edge and mismatched chairs. It felt authentic, like an existence someone had struggled to construct, not merely endure. She noticed a photograph attached to the refrigerator, a small girl with unruly curls and missing teeth, smiling as she clutched a jar of lightning bugs. "Emma?" she inquired. Daniel looked up, surprised. "Yes, from last summer." She thought she could domesticate them. A faint smile touched Ava's lips, vanishing almost instantly. Smiling had always invited danger. Smiling suggested vulnerability, and vulnerability inevitably led to pain. "Is she at school?" she asked. "Yes. Bus arrives at 7. She wanted to meet you, but I suggested giving you space." He paused. "She's inquisitive. Bright, too." Ava didn't respond. She stared at the steam rising from her mug. Daniel pushed it toward her. He observed her momentarily, then said, "You owe me nothing." She stiffened. He raised a hand reassuringly. "I understand what this might appear to be, but that's not what's happening. I didn't bring you here for any purpose except one. You needed assistance. That's all." Ava's eyes narrowed, assessing him. "You know nothing about me." "True," Daniel said softly, "but I recognize someone's suffering, and that's sufficient." A silence descended between them, heavy yet delicate. Then Ava did something she hadn't risked in years. She sat, truly sat, not poised for escape, not on edge. She simply sat. Daniel returned to the stove, allowing her this moment. That afternoon, the cabin settled into a rhythm. Ava remained subdued, moving through the space like a shadow. Yet she swept the living room unprompted. She fed the dog, an aging golden retriever named Cooper, who immediately claimed her as his own. She even discovered a container of girls' clothing in a plastic bin labeled "donations" in the laundry area and borrowed a sweatshirt that smelled faintly of vanilla and wood smoke. When the school bus arrived, Ava tensed. Moments later, the front door burst open and Emma rushed inside, her backpack bouncing behind her. She was petite and energetic, with eyes brimming with curiosity. She froze upon seeing Ava. "Hello," Emma said. Ava acknowledged her with a nod. "I'm Emma. Are you staying with us now?" Daniel entered behind her. "Emma, remember our conversation? Kindness comes first." Emma nodded solemnly, then turned back. "Do you like peanut butter? Because I have some." Ava blinked, caught off guard. Yes, I suppose." Emma beamed. "Then we can be friends. Just that simply." Later, as darkness fell and snow began drifting softly outside, Ava stood by the window, watching the forest. "Your neighbors," she said abruptly. "Will they object to my presence?" Daniel sat nearby, oiling a broken hinge from a kitchen drawer. "Probably. Small communities move slowly with forgiveness or understanding." Ava's voice flattened. "They'll assume you purchased me." He looked directly at her. "I did." She turned to him, startled. "But not how they'll imagine," he added. "I purchased your freedom. You owe me nothing, Ava. Not your history, not your trust. Just take whatever time you need." Her voice diminished. "I have nothing to offer." He stood, approaching slowly, and handed her the repaired hinge. "Then we'll begin with this. Help me fix a drawer." She stared at the metal piece, then gradually, almost imperceptibly, accepted it from his hand. It was insignificant. Yet it represented the beginning of everything. The snowfall had ceased, but the bitter chill lingered over Pinewood Crossing, like an ancient coat nobody dared discard. The kind of community where everyone recognized everyone, or believed they did. Where identical church pews filled each Sunday, the same coffee mugs refilled at the same diner, and where nothing, absolutely nothing, escaped notice. Especially not a 19-year-old woman with haunted eyes moving into Daniel Morgan's cabin. The whispers began within 48 hours. At the general store, heard he acquired her at some backwoods auction, paid cash. At the post office, doesn't surprise me one bit. That man's been unstable since his wife died. The girl seems disturbed, won't even make eye contact. He's got a young child in that house. What could he be thinking? The rumors slithered through fences and telephone lines until they reached the kitchen of Margaret Reynolds, Daniel's closest neighbor, Sunday school teacher, and self-appointed town moral guardian. She had known Daniel's late wife, Rebecca, had shed genuine tears at the funeral, had delivered homemade casseroles that first winter when Emma was merely an infant. So when the gossip reached her, she wasted no time. She appeared on his doorstep the following morning, bearing a pie and eyes sharp as steel. Daniel opened the door, still wearing his work boots, noted Margaret's expression, and sighed. "Morning, Margaret." "You've always been decent," she said, entering uninvited. "But even decent men make poor choices when grief clouds their judgment." Daniel closed the door behind her. "Would you care for coffee?" She placed the pie down forcefully. "No, thank you. I didn't come for pleasantries." From the hallway, Ava appeared momentarily. She caught Margaret's gaze, hesitated. "Is that her?" Margaret asked, making no attempt to lower her voice. "Ava," Daniel said gently, "this is Ms. Reynolds, our neighbor." Ava offered a quick nod before retreating into the hallway. Margaret folded her arms. "She looks traumatized." "She is," Daniel replied evenly. "You have a child in this house," Margaret said. "Bringing someone like her, someone without history, without family. It's irresponsible, Daniel." He met her scrutiny unflinchingly. "Emma adores her. Children lack discernment. She possesses more insight than most adults in this town," he countered. Margaret exhaled sharply. "People are talking." "I'm aware." He poured himself coffee and leaned against the counter. "But I never requested permission. I followed my conscience, and I'd make the same choice again." For a moment, Margaret's stern demeanor wavered. She glanced toward the hallway where Ava had disappeared. "I hope you're right," she said. Because everyone's watching. At school, Emma felt the change too. She was accustomed to being the quiet child, the one with simple sandwiches and secondhand jackets. But now classmates stared as she passed. Girls whispered behind cupped hands. A boy leaned across his lunch tray and said, "Hey, Emma, is it true your dad bought a girlfriend online?" She didn't comprehend the full implication, but recognized the intent to wound. That afternoon, when she disembarked from the bus, she raced inside past Cooper and through the kitchen, directly into Daniel's embrace. "They're being mean," she sobbed against his chest. "They said awful things about her." Ava stood motionless near the stove, dish towel in her hands. Daniel stroked Emma's hair. "What things? That she's dangerous? That you paid for her? Like she's not even human?" He looked up, his eyes meeting Ava's for the first time since her arrival. She appeared ashamed. He turned to Emma. "Do you know why we help others, sweetheart? Because it's right." He nodded. "Even when nobody else will. Even when they spread lies about it." Emma pulled away, sniffling. Then she looked at Ava, hesitating. "You won't leave us, will you?" Ava shook her head slowly. "Not unless you want me to." Emma's small hand reached out and clasped hers. "I don't want you to go." Later that evening, Daniel discovered Ava outside, sitting on the porch steps, wrapped in the old quilt, her breath crystallizing in the moonlight. Snow dusted the pine branches like confectioner's sugar. "Everything all right?" he asked. She didn't immediately answer. "I'm accustomed to being discussed, but differently. Not by people who matter." "They don't matter." She looked directly at him. "They matter to you." He sat beside her. "They're not raising my daughter." A lengthy silence followed. Then she said, "I never asked you to rescue me." "I know, but you did," he replied, "and I would tomorrow if necessary." She swallowed hard. "Do you ever regret it?" Daniel leaned back. "Never, but I do regret not finding you sooner." Ava looked away, her voice barely perceptible. "They bound my wrists when they forced me onto that platform." Daniel remained motionless. She continued, "They said nobody would want me, that even if I escaped, nobody would care." His jaw tightened. "They nearly succeeded," she whispered. He turned toward her then, voice steady. "Almost doesn't count." She blinked, and a solitary tear traced down her cheek. She made no move to wipe it away. For the first time, she allowed it to fall. Morning arrived with stillness and frost. The kind of frost that etched delicate patterns on window glass like nature's calligraphy, and the kind of stillness that follows profound emotional release. Ava had spoken little since their night on the porch. She moved with quiet purpose, still cautious, but no longer ghost-like. Something fundamental had shifted, not in the town's perception, not yet, but in her self-image. She remained damaged, but no longer invisible. Inside the cabin, the wood stove crackled softly. Daniel hunched over a stack of bills at the kitchen table, massaging his neck with a concerned hand. Across from him, Ava stirred a pot of oatmeal with careful attention. Cooper lay near her feet, snoring gently. Emma sat at the counter, coloring a treehouse picture, tongue protruding in concentration. "How's your masterpiece progressing?" Ava inquired. Emma grinned. "It'll have rope ladders and hidden compartments in the floor for emergency snacks." "Sounds like a survivalist's dream," Ava remarked, amusement glimmering in her voice. "Dad says you understand survival stuff," Emma added. "Is that true?" Daniel glanced up, concerned, but Ava merely shrugged. "I suppose you could say that. Will you teach me?" Ava hesitated, eyes darting to Daniel. He met her gaze and nodded once. The gesture sufficed. "All right, kiddo," Ava said softly. "We'll start with knots." That afternoon, Ava led Emma to the shed behind the cabin. The air remained crisp, but sunshine had warmed enough to soften the snow into a crunchy blanket. She retrieved a coil of old rope, rough but serviceable. "Knots?" Emma asked eagerly. "Knots," Ava confirmed. "First principle, a knot isn't just for securing things. It's for releasing when necessary." Emma tilted her head quizzically. "That doesn't make sense." "It will," Ava said, smiling faintly. They sat on a log, legs swinging rhythmically. Ava demonstrated the square knot, the bow line, and the slip knot. Emma struggled, grew frustrated, then giggled when Ava illustrated using her own bootlaces. "You're really good at this," Emma observed suddenly. Ava blinked. "At tying knots?" Number at being kind. The simple statement struck Ava profoundly. Kindness was a capacity she hadn't exercised in years, one she feared had withered away. Yet here was this 7-year-old offering an assessment without judgment, merely observation. "Thanks," Ava said, brushing dust from her jeans. "You're pretty remarkable yourself." That evening, Daniel watched from the porch as Ava lit the outdoor fire pit and roasted marshmallows with Emma. Their laughter rose above the crackling flames, authentic and vibrant. Months, perhaps years, had passed since he'd heard his daughter laugh so freely. Yet even as his spirits lifted, he noticed how Ava moved, vigilantly, like someone perpetually anticipating punishment. He joined them carrying 2 steaming mugs. "Is this for me?" Ava asked, surprised. "Unless Emma requires both." "I definitely do." Emma grinned, claiming hers. They sat together in comfortable silence, flames dancing, stars scattered across the indigo sky. "You connect well with her," Daniel said quietly. Ava shrugged dismissively. "She's naturally lovable." "You don't believe you are?" Ava remained silent, gazing into the fire. "I wasn't raised for that. I was raised for survival." Daniel set his mug down carefully. "There's a profound difference." "I know," she whispered. "That's why it feels so strange simply existing here. Warm, secure, not anticipating disaster." He offered no response. None was needed. Ava turned toward him. "May I ask something?" "Certainly." "Why did you really bring me home?" He met her eyes directly. "Because I recognize someone who'd been failed repeatedly. And because Emma doesn't need perfection. She needs authenticity. A home where people genuinely try." Her throat constricted. "I've never succeeded at being someone's anything." "You're here," he said. "That's enough for now." The following morning, frost returned heavier. Ava woke to harsh coughing, wet, alarming, emanating from Emma's bedroom. She bolted upright, heart racing. Within seconds, she stood in Emma's doorway. Daniel was already there, supporting his daughter as she gasped, face pale and clammy. "Inhaler's empty," he said, panic flickering beneath his composure. "I plan to refill it tomorrow. I never thought—" Ava interrupted him. "We need heat and steam immediately." She rushed to the kitchen, boiled water, gathered towels. She'd managed this before with strangers, with relatives, with herself. She filled a basin with steaming water, draped a towel over Emma's head, and held her steady while Daniel struggled to maintain his composure. "Breathe slowly, darling," Ava murmured. "You're safe. You're protected. You're strong." Emma wheezed, then inhaled deeper with each breath. Daniel's eyes glistened. "How did you know what to do?" Ava maintained her focus on Emma. "Because once, nobody helped me." Gradually, Emma's breathing normalized. Her body relaxed against her father's arms. Ava sat back, hands trembling. Daniel regarded her as if truly seeing her for the first time. "You saved her." Ava stared at her hands. "She saved me first." Winter in Pinewood Crossing penetrated deeply, relentless, steady, inescapable. But inside the hillside cabin, something warmer flourished. Ava stood in the kitchen early that morning, humming softly as she cracked eggs into a cast-iron skillet. The melody was unrecognizable, off-key and tentative, yet it filled the space like sunlight after tempest. Cooper thumped his tail rhythmically against the floor, following her every movement with devoted eyes. Emma, wrapped in a flannel blanket, sat at the table drawing stick figures holding hands beneath a brilliant yellow sun. "Is that me?" Ava asked, nodding toward the artwork. Emma nodded enthusiastically. "That's you, and that's Daddy, and that's me, and we're making pancakes." Ava smiled genuinely this time. "I can't draw, but I can certainly flip pancakes." You're amazing at mornings, Emma declared. Mom was too. Daddy says good mornings stay with you forever. Ava's smile faltered momentarily, but she recovered quickly, concealing the flicker of pain as she'd learned to mask all her vulnerable aspects. By midday, the house smelled of cinnamon syrup and something rare but authentic: belonging. Daniel returned early from hauling timber and paused at the entrance, absorbing the scene. His daughter in pajamas, Ava singing more confidently now, and Cooper sleeping contentedly with paws skyward. Redecorating while I was gone, he asked with a gentle smirk. Just revitalizing, Ava replied, flipping a pancake dramatically. I approve. He meant more than the pancakes. She understood. That afternoon, while Ava folded laundry and Emma played outside with snow-encrusted boots and a sled that barely glided, Daniel checked the mailbox at the bottom of their long gravel drive. Mostly advertisements, a few bills, but among them was a plain envelope without return address. He opened it while walking back. Inside was a single sheet of lined paper, creased harshly, written in ink pressed so firmly it nearly tore through. You can domesticate a stray, but it remains feral. Some creatures don't belong in homes. She's not one of us. The community's watching. So are we. No signature, no compassion. He stood motionless momentarily, allowing the cold to seep into his bones. Then wordlessly, he folded the letter, tucked it into his back pocket, and continued toward the cabin. That evening, Daniel never mentioned the threatening note. He didn't want to frighten Emma or awaken ghosts Ava hadn't yet confronted. Instead, he quietly reinforced window locks and verified the motion-activated security lights functioned properly. But Ava noticed his frequent glances toward the driveway, the unusual tension in his jaw. After Emma's bedtime ritual, 2 hugs, 3 kisses, 1 whispered wish, Ava found Daniel outside on the porch, hands buried in his coat pockets, staring vacantly. Mail troubles? She asked. His breath clouded the air. Yes. About me? He turned unflinching. Yes. She nodded resignedly. They're not entirely wrong. His expression hardened. Don't say that. It's what I've heard my entire life. They're mistaken, he said firmly. Ava leaned against the railing, arms crossed defensively. I used to believe people like them possessed power, that their judgments carried weight, that they understood me better than I understood myself. They fear what they don't comprehend, he said. She laughed mirthlessly. Yes, I'm familiar with that. Don't accept it, Daniel insisted. This place, this home, it's not constructed on fear. She studied him intently. You built this life with someone else. Your wife? He nodded slowly. Rebecca, we purchased this land after Emma's birth. She craved tranquility, gardens, chickens. She claimed cities lacked adequate stars. Ava remained silent, allowing the conversation to breathe. She died 5 years ago, Daniel continued softly. Car accident, winter storm. I wasn't with her. The anguish in his voice remained steady, not sharp anymore, like a wound scarred over but never properly healed. I'm sorry, Ava whispered. She would have appreciated you, he said. Ava blinked, startled. Why? She instinctively recognized survivors, people who'd traversed hell yet continued forward. Ava found herself speechless. After a moment, Daniel extracted the letter from his coat and handed it to her. She unfolded it, read the hateful words, then did something unexpected. She tore it in half, then quarters, then into fragments so minuscule the ink disappeared completely. I'm staying, she declared. I never suggested otherwise. I'm saying it aloud for myself. Later that night, lying in darkness on the couch, Ava contemplated roots, how they never sought permission from soil to grow, how they simply extended regardless of surface conditions. She remained uncertain if permanence was possible, but she was beginning to hope, and that itself was revolutionary. The snowfall began imperceptibly, delicate flakes drifting earthward like afterthoughts, seemingly harmless, almost beautiful. Ava stood by the front window clutching a mug of tea, watching white powder swirl around the porch steps. She had grown up fearing winters. Cold meant deprivation. Cold meant increased violence. Cold meant silence that fractured bones. But this cabin, this porch, this existence felt fundamentally different. Emma sat cross-legged on the living room floor, constructing a fortress from tin cans and cardboard boxes. Daniel was assisting the town's snow removal crew near Harrison Creek. He departed at dawn bundled in multiple layers, carrying a thermos of strong black coffee. The radio murmured in the background, initially nonchalant. Winter advisory issued, conditions deteriorating more rapidly than anticipated. Whiteout conditions possible. By noon, the world outside had vanished completely. Trees became specters. The road disappeared entirely. Snow no longer whispered but howled. Ava increased the thermostat and stuffed blankets beneath drafty windowsills. Emma expressed no disappointment about missing school. She read books aloud from her cozy corner, voice gentle yet steady. The cabin remained warm, but Ava couldn't dispel her growing unease. Anxiety coiled within her chest. She checked the clock repeatedly. Daniel should have returned hours ago. At 3:47 p.m., urgent knocking rattled the door. Ava yanked it open to find William Peterson, the town's mail carrier and volunteer firefighter. His beard was encrusted with ice, his hat askew. "Daniel," he gasped, "he's injured, trapped beneath a fallen tree. I discovered him near the creek. Vehicles can't navigate the terrain." Ava's thoughts crystallized with shocking clarity. Exactly where is he? About a mile down from the old hunting path, past the curve near Mitchell's Ridge. "Will you take Emma?" William appeared confused. "What? I'm going." "Impossible. I must." Ava turned to Emma, who had grown ashen. She knelt and grasped the child's hands. "You're completely safe. Cooper stays with you. Listen to Mr. Peterson, and don't open the door for anyone except me." Emma nodded, eyes wide and moist. "Will Daddy be okay?" Ava's throat constricted painfully. "Yes, because I'm going to bring him home." She was already halfway out the door. The blizzard showed no mercy. It didn't care that visibility was non-existent. It disregarded breath, bone, and blood. It screamed and clawed, whipping her coat violently, stealing warmth with every exhalation. But Ava pressed forward, each step defying nature itself. The hunting trail had virtually disappeared. Only occasional fence posts and tree stumps provided orientation. Her boots sank deeply, her gloves stiffened with ice. Still she advanced. A single thought pulsed within her mind like a heartbeat. I cannot lose them, not after everything we've endured. After 20 excruciating minutes, she spotted a shape partially buried beneath snow. Motionless. Daniel. A massive tree trunk had collapsed across his left leg, pinning him. His face appeared ghostly, lips blue-tinged. "Daniel!" She dropped to her knees, brushing snow from his chest. His eyelids fluttered weakly. "Ava." "Hi," she said, voice breaking. "You really selected a terrible day for lumberjack practice." He attempted a smile. "Didn't mean to worry you." "You didn't," she lied, clearing snow from his forehead. "You just provided an excuse for adventure." She assessed his breathing, shallow but consistent. His leg was crushed beneath the trunk, but not completely immobile. With sufficient leverage, perhaps, she could... She scanned the area, identified a broken branch long enough to serve as a lever. "Hold on," she whispered. "Just hold on." Her first attempt snapped the branch. Her second shifted the trunk marginally. The third attempt unleashed a primal scream from deep within her soul, and the massive weight moved just enough. Daniel groaned as she dragged him free, pulling him across the snow inch by excruciating inch. She lost track of time. Her muscles screamed, her lungs burned, her face stung raw. But somehow she maneuvered him beneath the shelter of dense pines and wrapped him in the emergency blanket she kept tied around her waist. Then she lay beside him, enveloping his trembling body with her own warmth, whispering repeatedly, "You're safe now. You're protected. I've got you." Rescuers located them 2 hours later, severely chilled but alive. William had returned with a snowmobile, carrying Emma and a sheriff's deputy. The search had commenced when a neighbor discovered Daniel's thermos near the creek and reported it. At the medical center, while nurses treated Daniel's leg, the sheriff asked Ava to sit. "You accomplished something few would attempt," he said. "That storm could have claimed you both." Ava nodded, exhausted. The sheriff consulted his notepad. "Previous rescue experience?" "No," she replied. "Just survival skills." He paused thoughtfully. "Seems those skills preserved 2 lives today." Ava gazed through the glass partition at Daniel's hospital bed where he now slept, hand resting limply on his chest. Her voice emerged quiet but resolute. "Perhaps it's time I stopped merely surviving and learned to truly live." The snow persisted, but something else had begun to thaw. News of the incident spread faster than the storm itself. By morning, every corner of Pinewood Crossing knew the story. Daniel Morgan trapped beneath a fallen tree during the blizzard. The young woman he'd taken in venturing alone into a whiteout to drag him home alive. No one could openly criticize her now, though some still attempted. At Greta's cafe, familiar voices murmured over steaming coffee cups. Heard she used a branch as leverage, extracted him through sheer determination. Doesn't automatically mean she belongs here. Perhaps not. But she saved him, and his daughter too. Can't deny that. And in that moment, the community did what communities inevitably do. It reassessed, gradually, reluctantly. Ava remained indifferent to public opinion. She sat beside Daniel's hospital bed, focused on the rhythmic rise and fall of his chest beneath sterile sheets. The fluorescent lighting rendered everything clinical, suspended in time. Daniel's leg was immobilized from knee to ankle, his ribs severely bruised, but he would recover completely. He lived. Nothing else mattered. Emma had curled into the adjacent chair, clutching Cooper's leash despite the dog remaining at home. Her expression remained solemn, subdued. Ava reached across and took her hand. "Holding up okay, sweetheart?" Emma nodded. "I prayed." Ava's throat tightened. "I believe someone heard you." "Was it difficult?" Emma asked. "Rescuing him?" Ava smiled faintly. "The hardest thing I've ever attempted." Emma blinked thoughtfully. "But you succeeded." "I had no alternative. Nobody else would have tried," Emma whispered. "That's what frightened me most." Ava studied her for a prolonged moment, then leaned forward to kiss her forehead. When Daniel regained consciousness, awareness returned gradually. His voice emerged hoarse, but the first word he spoke was her name. "Ava." She rose from her chair and clasped his hand. "Hello there. You terrified me." "You're not easily frightened," he rasped. "Well," she replied with a tender smile, "you have exceptional talent." He attempted to sit upright and winced sharply. "Emma." "Perfectly fine. She refused to leave your side until moments ago.